I'm doing good. How are you today?
I'm okay. I mean, still recovering from a freaky night.
How
It,
did the premiere go?
it went really good. The audience was right into it. It's a movie that uh, I was unclear as to how people would react to it because it's so dumb. But yeah, people were on the right wavelength and enjoyed it. So yeah, it's a good time.
Um, what is the importance of festivals like Fantasia or just festivals in general for films such as yours?
I mean, it's a great place for fans of the genre to congregate and experience these things together. Um, and it's also a great place to get just kind of like random festival goers experiencing movies that are maybe outside of their wheelhouse. Um, and yeah, it's just a great way to get an audience reaction. Like to be able to sit in a theater and watch it with a crowd is such a different experience than watching it at home on my own. It's just such a different energy and a different vibe. So yeah, I feel like it's a necessary component of making movies, and there's like a catharsis to it for me too. Of watching it with an audience is a way of like confirming that I finished the movie and it's out. It's like not mine anymore. It's the audience's. They get to enjoy it. I'm done. It's officially signaling me being done working on it.
I had posted a picture of the poster online when I was watching the screener, and several people were like, "Is that Connor Sweeney?" And so you already have a built-in audience courtesy of him.
Oh, definitely. Well, and I feel like he hasn't had a role like this yet. Like part of the genesis of this movie was I was making the merch commercial for Psycho Goreman that Connor stars in, and it's like he's pitching merch, but he's also it's also like an unsolved mysteries episode at the same time. And we were making it up as we went along, and it was just Connor riffing. And I was having so much fun doing that I was like, well, I want to like make a whole movie of this. So that was my reason for like centering the movie around Connor. I feel like the guy's comic timing is impeccable. He's just hilarious as soon as you turn the camera on. So yeah, I just wanted an excuse to like hang out with him and film him getting his ass kicked by puppets for 80 minutes.
Like to that end, like your previous movies have featured like a lot of practical effects and things like that, but I have to imagine that has to present something of a challenge in that most of this movie is just Connor and those puppets. Like, is that challenging for you as a director as much as it's probably a challenge for Connor as an actor?
Connor definitely complained about the challenge of having to act against inanimate objects all the time because then you can see it in his scenes where he is interacting with another human being. Like you could feel his like desperation of like wanting to interact with a living being because yeah, so much of the movie is him talking to a thing that can't even move. And even when we shot his side of like conversations with Frankie, we would use the static prop of Frankie. So it's like not even it's not giving him anything. It's literally just a like statue looking at him and he has to act all animated. So he's doing double duty. So yeah, it was exhausting for him. And then for us, like myself and the puppeteers, like it was a huge challenge trying to find like how do we hide people in the frame for this and how do we hide them in a way that they're even remotely comfortable. Having the stamina for puppeteering was a bit of a learning process on this. We definitely all got like really sore wrists from operating those puppets. It was the whole thing was just a huge like learning experience as far as like making a little monster movie, which in my mind going into it seemed like an easy task, but it was very much the opposite of that. It was very challenging. Uh, so many kinks that had to be worked out before shooting and while shooting, and in some cases in post production as well.
Like so many of your previous films feature things like, full body prosthetics and things of that nature. What made you want to go for puppets on Frankie Freako as opposed to, like something like Psycho Gorman or The Void?
Well, I think on my experiences on those projects, really just like working as an effects artist as well, like seeing the time that goes into putting someone into prosthetics. It's just so expensive and time consuming and taxing on the performer as well that I got it in my head that like, oh, well, it would be easier and more cost effective to have puppets because you don't really have to you don't have to pay them or take care of them. You literally just like put them off to the side when you're done shooting. It's really getting into like a Charles Band headspace of like the efficiency, but also the marketability of it. Thinking like in George Lucas terms, it's like try to come up with things that are very toyetic and would translate into merchandise, of course, because that for me, the fun of making movies and the charm of making movies like this is the world around the movie as well. I was like very open about that with Psycho Goreman as well, where it's like I just like the idea that all these things are also action figures and video games and comic books and stuff. And so the idea of doing like a puppet movie, it just seemed so instantly and hilariously marketable that I just want to really lean into that. That's why all the color schemes for all the characters are so bold, because I knew that you shrink that down just a little bit more to toy size, and it's like it's a pretty fun action figure. So
The Psycho Gorman Blu-ray is just like chock-a-block with like bonus features and things like that. When you went into making Frankie Freako, did you were you creating stuff for the eventual physical release of this as well?
yeah, we're filming BTS as we were shooting. I mean, I always have this fantasy of like having a full like start to finish documentary, like the one that's on like the Devil's Rejects DVD that I love, where it's like from like was it like the first script read through, like right to delivering the movie. But then that always gets derailed by actually having to make the movie. So having said that, we did get lots of bonus features. Uh, there is sorry, lots of behind the scenes footage. So that'll translate it to some fun bonus features. And we actually recorded a commentary last weekend and a very weird interview between Connor and Frankie that I'm looking forward to people seeing. So yeah, there's going to be some fun stuff on this Shout Factory Blu-ray.
The the score for this was done by Blitz Berlin, who you worked
Yes,
with for the score on Psycho Gorman, uh, and also The Void too, if I'm not mistaken.
yes, they came in partway through post. Thank you. Partway through post on The Void and did a bunch of tracks for that as well. And that's where we first met them. And after that, I was like, I want these guys on everything because they're awesome. They can do such a diverse range of music. Uh, and I just, because I'm making, like, I'm working within the genre, but every genre movie I make is its own weird thing that has its own tropes and its own style. And they're able to adapt to that really well. And so with Frankie, I like pushed them super hard to go as far into like Danny Elfman territory as they could without, being able to afford an actual orchestra. And yeah, I keep telling them I think this is their best score. Yeah, I think it's really fantastic. It's so dynamic and fun, and really it like just gives the movie the right vibe.
In terms of vibes, like I know a lot of people have talked about this movie like in terms of like Gremlins and things like that, but I think what you said earlier is like referring to getting in that Charles Band headspace really describes like the vibe of Frankie Freako. Um like were there specific movies that you looked at like as ways to things to emulate or maybe things not to? I'm thinking of something like Hobgoblins.
Yeah, actually, I watched Hobgoblins the first time not that long ago. Uh, puppets were kind of fun looking, but yeah, as far as like movies that I used as inspiration for this, I mean, my DOP Pierce Dirks and I watched like we tried to seek out like every little monster movie there was, and trying to see like what to do, what not to do. The big one that sticks in my brain that like I'm still watching, like I put it on at the shop the other day to my crew's dismay. But Ghoulies Go to College is one of my favorites. I think that's like peak little monster movie. And thinking back on it, actually like has some similar structure elements to Frankie Freako. It even ends with like a big end boss the same way that Frankie does. Um, but yeah, that movie in terms of like just tone and the weird reality it sets up, that's what we wanted to do with Frankie, was like build our own weird universe that clearly exists outside of reality. And then parallel to that, like as we were like in the script stage and when we're slowly starting to put together the visual look of the movie, started to also sink into like erotic thriller territory. Pierce and I watched movies like Animal Instincts, Body Double, um, like stuff kind of in that realm, just because we thought it would be funny to set the movie in that sort of universe that get have that get derailed by a Ghoulies Go to College aesthetic. Like there's a very clear shift. There's like a moment in the movie where Connor like walks into a room and it's like he's walking into a different movie. And so yeah, the what I guess what we were trying to do was set the reality in erotic thriller world and then the Freako unreality in like Ghoulies Go to College territory, and just seeing the like weird parallel of those two spaces.
I love the fact that you have this movie that exists in this world that just had its premiere, but you also worked on a very different movie that came out earlier this summer, In a Violent Nature, um, which feels like it's not quite 180 degrees away, but definitely a much different tone than this. Like when you're doing effects work for other folks, like is it are you getting into like the milieu, like the vibes, the world of that, or are you just like trying to do the best work you can, or are those two things connected?
Yeah, I mean, I try to get into the right headspace for everything that I'm doing. Like, yeah, Violent Nature is a very different movie, and obviously, I want to like honor the legacy of the types of slasher movies that it's homaging. And so, yeah, I was in definitely more of a Friday the 13th headspace. I mean, it helps that I just like love a wide range of genre movies, so it's easy for me to get hyped up for like any kind of style or tone, whether it's like, yeah, kind of an artsy, gritty horror movie or a silly puppet movie. It's like, I don't know, I have fun with all of it. And it's also like a lot of the same people too. Like Chris Nash worked on Frankie Freako. He did a bunch of like the puppet mechs for it and things. And like we have such a funny dynamic just in our relationship that like I don't know, there's like a consistency to everything, no matter how uh wildly different the projects are. If that makes sense. Like it's still like whether it's building bodies for the yoga kill in Violent Nature, or it's building like mechanical hand puppets to slap Connor in the ass on Frankie Freako. It's like still me and Chris like doing the same riffs and having the same arguments about movies in the shop. So yeah.
That brings me so much joy. Well, I think that's our time, Steve. I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your morning to talk to me. I really cannot wait for everybody else to get to see this movie. It is an absolute blast and a half.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great chatting with you.
You're welcome. Have a good rest of your day, sir.